Hello, welcome to part 1 of my writing an essay series, Planning an Essay. This video we are looking at how to plan your essay so that it is easy for you to then start making notes and then write the essay and then proofread it. Yay! So you can see that we've got a question that we're wanting to answer here. How do we know that the earth is round? We've got 800 words, and so I've actually sectioned out my, like all good essays, we've got an introduction, a conclusion, and then some main points in the middle. I've sectioned out those with the amount of words that would be appropriate given my total word count. We can see that the introduction is about tell them what you were going to tell them. This doesn't mean in this essay I'm going to talk about, but it does mean actually mentioning some of the things we're going to talk about in point 1, 2, and 3. Your conclusion is the same thing. Tell them what you told them. We're essentially restating what we learned in points 1, 2, and 3. Now, we can use these who, what, when, how, where, why, all of those questions to bulk out the information and also to make sure that we've covered everything. So if we're talking about how do we know that the earth is round and I haven't covered maybe what earth is, that's going to be a little bit confusing for the reader. So we want to make sure that we've covered all of that basic information that the question is actually asking us to talk about before we really dive deeply into these main points. Now, if I don't really know much about what my question is asking me, I'm going to need to do some background information. And for that, I'm actually going to use a source that some people don't really like, and that's Wikipedia. Now, people don't like it because it can be changed by anyone at any time, but I find it actually really a helpful and reliable background information finder. So it can be a good place to start, although I am not going to reference it in my essay. So I'm going to start by searching earth round. Those are my keywords that I'm actually looking for. And I'm not going to click on the first thing that comes up. I'm going to click on what I actually want. And that is this page, Spherical Earth Wikipedia. If I go onto this page, I can see there's some background info about when people started thinking that the earth is round. Okay, and this actually happened BC, as we can see here. But what I'm looking for is this contents page. And we can see here on the contents page that there are actually lots and lots of different arguments. We could talk about lunar eclipses, we could talk about observing the sun and how the length of the day, the length of twilight, how measuring those things determines that the earth is round. And so I'm going to pick 3 that I've had a look at before, and I'm going to use those as my main points. So essentially this contents page has given me some ideas. If, for example, I wanted to know, well, how does changing the length of the day, how does that relate? I can then click on that, read more about it, and see if it's relevant to put that into my essay. So the ones that I'm going to go with are point 1, we're going to go with the circumnavigation of Earth. Oops. Point 2, we're going to go with space observation. And so this observation is hard to talk and type at the same time. This is going to include things like the lunar eclipse, the setting sun, and maybe some other things that I've researched along the way. Point 3 is going to include modern technology. And this is mostly going to be talking about GPS and how we use GPS and how we know that that would only work if the earth was round. And so I'm using a little bit of my own background information, a little bit of my prior research on this Spherical Earth Wikipedia page to gauge what kinds of things I could be talking about in this essay. Now, some of you may also have a rubric that you need to address. Now, this is just a very basic thing as an example. Rubric: students select and represent data. You might see something like this for an essay. Usually your teacher will give you some indication of what they want to see. But let's say I want to get this A and I want to select highly relevant data, represent it accurately, all that kind of stuff. And then, so my plan is then to include data somewhere in my essay because I really want to hit that criteria. What I'm actually going to do is say here, find and create data. And I know that in this section, it's part of my plan to address this criteria. So now I've got a good plan and I can actually start researching.